so excited to introduce you to today's Mentor Talks episode. Our Mentor Talks program, a joint initiative with Our NYC, invites mentor figures throughout the city to be interviewed by our student and young adult teams who explore their experiences and advice in the areas of social impact, education, the workplace, networking, skills, internships, and more. So I'd love to start off today's episode with a brief introduction of our Mentor Talks team. My name is May, and I'm currently serving as the Mentor Talks coordinator and serve on the NYC Starting Up board. And our interviewers today will be Erin, Chloe, and Chris.
Hi, my name is Erin, and I'm currently a student studying biology at Cornell University.
Hello, my name is Chloe, and I'm currently a high schooler, and I'll be one of the interviewers today.
Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm currently an undergrad student at Fordham University studying economics. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much for the introductions. And now I'm super honored to introduce today's Mentor Talks guest, Mr. Frederick Lewis II. It is an understatement to say that Mr. Lewis has an extremely impressive and vast background in New York's governmental sphere. He has served and held management positions in almost every legislative office in New York State, including the Senate, Assembly, the New York City Council, the New York City Borough President's Office, and the New York City Office of the Public Advocate. As a political and public affairs consultant, he has worked in various presidential, mayoral, and legislative campaigns and uses his excellence in community work and partnerships to positively impact New York City. So please welcome Mr. Lewis, and we are so happy to have you. So sort of as the first question before I pass it off to Chris, Erin, and Chloe, we would love to hear more about your career. Could you give us a brief overview of your work and career from now?
Well, it really started back in 73, 74, when I went to work for the New York State Division for Youth, to counsel youngsters from New York City who were sent to camps upstate New York. And that was my start of really getting involved in, quote, state service and government. I must also say that I come from a family of politicians, particularly my mother, who had the great honor to run for the New York State Assembly on the same ticket as Nelson Rockefeller, former governor and vice president of the United States. So I've been involved in politics for a great many years and have tried to use it to better the quality of life for the persons that we serve. And it's been a good ride. I thought I had retired some time ago, but I see I haven't. I'm still involved in coordinating political campaigns and just still have the itch to every so often get out there and hit the ground and talk to young folk and old folk about the importance of being involved.
Thank you so much. And that was an amazing answer and a little wonderful introduction into the questions that we're going to go into today that will tackle your career and advice that you have for younger students like our team here. So now I'm going to pass it off to Erin, who will touch a little bit on questions just about your career overall. And then we're going to delve into a bunch of different topics like education, social impact, and more. So thank you so much.
Okay, so my first question for you is, what do you love about your career?
Being able to touch countless people, being able to help countless numbers of people, not forgetting from whence I came and trying to pull others up along the way, again, to better the quality of life. It's something that was, I guess I inherited from my parents. And I've enjoyed being involved and enjoy still being involved because I have an expression that we must aspire to inspire before we expire. So I'm going to try to do my best to reach out and touch and try to guide and mentor and lead others to a more successful life.
In addition to this aspect of helping other people and bringing them up, what else influenced your decision to choose this career in the first place?
I guess it truly started back in elementary school. 1954, there was a Brown versus Board of Education bill that was passed, which it made it okay to segregate or integrate schools that were formerly segregated. So I was bused from my community to an all-white neighborhood school. And that was my first experience with really getting to know that despite the stereotypes that people have about each other, that there was only one race, and that was the human race. And you get what you give, and you treat others as you wish to be treated. And it was from that learning of having to be bused to school and then be treated in a way that was contrary to what you were told was going to happen. And it was a great experience for me, great friends, and it didn't matter your complexion, it didn't matter your height, your weight. It was about your character and your integrity. And it started way back when for me.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. So thank you so much. And now I'll pass it off to Chloe, who will ask more about your educational background.
Thank you.
Hello, so I will now ask about your education. So how did your undergrad and, if applicable, graduate education prepare you for your career?
My undergrad was at Queens College, probably the diamond of the Cooney system. A great education there, just an absolute great education. When I first went, it was, you could count the number of minorities on one hand. But by the time I left in 72, it was a lot more diverse. But some of the best professors and teachers that you could just ever imagine. Once I began to work for the state, I did some graduate work at Fordham University. That was a really great experience. Plus, I was from the Bronx and I went to the Bronx campus. But I didn't finish my master's, but it was a great experience in the courses that I took and in the things that I learned there. And again, the ability to rub shoulders with some of the greatest and well-known professors and teachers that you can imagine.
All right, that's great. So what undergraduate and graduate programs would you recommend for someone who's looking to continue with your career?
Political science, sociology, criminal justice, history for sure, because it gives you a wide range of information that we see happening every day in our daily lives. And all of those subjects are really a part of our daily life. So I would strongly suggest that, students take a couple of courses, feel the courses out. But in our lifetime, we're going to need to know how to deal with one another. And those subjects give you a foundation as to people, places, and things, and kind of give you a vehicle to truly get involved with others.
All right, so it's been amazing to hear about how your education has shaped your career. So now I'll pass it off to Chris for our next questions on social impact.
Let me just give you one more piece before you pass me off. Another great experience in my life is I went and played basketball, professional basketball in Switzerland. The first time that I had ever been out of the country, and for certain, a totally different environment than I had ever known. But it helped me grow and mature so much because it gave me a chance to, again, mix and mingle with people that I normally wouldn't have had the ability to do. And it was just, it truly made me understand whether it was the United States or whether it was overseas. Do unto others as you wish others to do unto you. And if you treat people right, they're going to treat you right. And that was another experience that gave me the foundation to come back to the States and really want to give a helping hand to all those that I could.
So now we have Chris.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier that part of what's so important about your work is being able to reach out to people and help people. So this question sort of builds on that. What kind of impact does your career have on people and on society?
It's an educational impact, informal and formal. It gets people to really look at what's happening with themselves and what's happening around them. It teaches the importance of being involved. You have to be in it to win it, regardless of what's going on. For example, how important it is to be a part of the political system, of voting, knowing who your legislators are, knowing your community leaders, knowing what to do in the case of certain things happening in your community, who to go to. Many folk are just living and are really not a part of what's going on. You have to be a part of what's going on. And we're getting a lot of talk about the 2024 elections, but people don't understand the elections you have to be really totally involved in are your local elections. Because it's your city council, your assembly people, your senate people, your mayors, and your governor that have a direct impact on you every day. And you need to know who they are, what they do, and how you can best utilize them to help yourself and your community. So that's how I try to impact on people, by giving them the tools and the wisdom to know how to kind of navigate the political structure in our communities. And it's not just, there's big P and the small p. The big politics and what we be talking about, general elections and your president and all of that. But just the politics of maybe the houses of worship that you go to, the politics of your community planning board, the politics of your local NYPD force, those things that you really have to all be a part of and knowledgeable about.
Yeah, all that sounds really important. Makes me want to go vote in 2024. Guess I'll have to remember to do that.
To say the least.
Yeah. Besides that, is there any kind of volunteer work or something of the sort related to your career that you've performed for the community? I suppose your work is very tied with the community, but
I volunteer for everything that anyone asks me to that I think is going to help other people. I am constantly called to help people navigate the legal system, to navigate the housing system, to navigate just a myriad of areas. And I'm a people's kind of guy. And I think I became more of that when I was the deputy public advocate under Mark Green. People have so many needs. And no matter what level we might be on, you have to meet people where they're at. And you have to help people where they're at. So whenever I can, quote, volunteer to help someone, I'm there. I'm there. And I try to keep a network of people that I can call and say, listen, such and such needs help. I need your help. How can you help me with this issue? You know, and I've had the great fortune of knowing many, many elected officials who can help me navigate systems for people that I need to help navigate systems.
Are there any like volunteer programs or even just volunteer work in general that you would recommend someone interested in that kind of work, like in doing?
Yeah, the YMCAs, you know, the Salvation Army, Big Brother, Big Sister. Those are the agencies that really impact on a lot of youth. Your local churches, your local synagogues, your local temples, you know. It just helping people, you know, tutoring others, you know, to try to get them to understand the importance of not only learning, but giving it back to others also. And agencies that I just named, like the YMCAs, Salvation Army, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, religious institutions, all need help all the time. The American Red Cross, you know, I had the pleasure of working in the American Red Cross under the auspices of Andy Cuomo, the former governor of New York State. That's how I met Andy. So it are those kind of agents, and seeing what programs are in your neighborhoods to volunteer. Some of you volunteer for your community centers that are in your neighborhood. You can volunteer at some of the schools, you know, in your neighborhood. But there, you know, that helps you grow and mature. And you will never understand how fortunate you are until you see what other people are going through as you help them along to help them get better.
Thank you so much for answering these questions.
I appreciate
it. It's great to hear you weigh in on them. And now I'll let Aaron ask some more questions about career development and internships and the such.
this.
Yes, so I will be talking more about career development, skills, resources, etc. So my first question is, what do you think the most important skills and qualities that you need for your career, and how did you personally develop them?
Well, let me say this first. When I was coming through in school, especially in high school, they had 3 diplomas: general, vocational, and academic. One of the most important diplomas was the vocational, because not everyone is academically oriented. And I saw friends of mine take vocational courses, which was a pathway to unions, and are making probably more than the president of the United States, because they took vocations such as carpentry, electricity, auto mechanics. Years ago, they called it stenography. They taught typing, plumbing, careers that, even though we don't see them as being academic, they were sort of academic because they had to learn still how to do these things. But we have to remember that everyone, again, is not academically oriented, but have skills with their mind, skills with their hand. I look at a program that we talked about, particularly for kids who wanted to be rappers. But before they would be able to go into the studio to be rappers, they had to learn engineering, which gave them a craft that they could take anywhere. If the rapping didn't get off, it didn't matter because they had that engineering experience. Again, I was kind of born into politics. It was a part of my family, and it was also a part of my community. I had a guy who adopted me like I was his son, who was a congressman, Robert Garcia, a Hispanic gentleman who was the congressman in my area in the South Bronx. And he was probably the first person that was the mentor that I ever needed and had. And we didn't even know anything about, quote, mentorship. But he knew my family, and he really took me under his wing, and off I went. I had the great experience of growing up with Jose Serrano, who became a United States congressman, with Eugene Oliver, who became the administrative judge of criminal court in the Bronx, of Larry Seabrook, who became an assembly person, a Senate person, and a New York City Council person. They were all a part of, we were reared together. So politics was always in my environment and in my dealings. And it was through working with Bobby Garcia, Jose, Larry, that I was able to meet people in what I'm going to call the game. And I had the great fortune of being close to a person who was running Chuck Schumer's original campaign against D'Amato. And the young lady said to me, "I really like how you work. I really like how you work. How would you like to work at the Public Advocate's Office?" And at that point, I was working in the Senate office of Larry Seabrook. But there was something about her, and there was something about that aura of the Public Advocate's Office that really caught my attention. And once I got the position there, my career really just took off into politics. Just took off. I was able to get involved with John Kerry's presidential election, with Clinton's political presidential run. And it just took off after that. And it was, again, my role was truly to bring minorities in to the fold, and particularly the churches, the Black churches, the Latino churches, to bring them into the fold, to get them more involved in politics. Because for years, people were told that, religion And there's a separation between church and state, and there's no separation, none whatsoever. The separation came when you didn't want people to vote for certain candidates. But the Baptists weren't involved, the Christians weren't involved, but the evangelicals were highly involved. So it was my role to bring religious institutions into the fold, to bring minorities into the fold, and to try to enlighten people as to what they needed to be involved in as I went through the ranks to bring people along with me.
Yeah, definitely. It was really nice to hear about how you grew with mentors and connections and eventually got more involved in the political sphere. Do you have anything else to add about how you developed these critical skills?
You know, everything we do is politics. Either, like I said, capital P or small p. You have to develop some of it, quote, formally, because you have to make yourself knowledgeable first and foremost. So you need to be aware of your current events. I grew up in schools that made sure that you knew what was happening with current events. When I was in elementary school, being bused to an all-white school, we had the New York Times. And you're talking about first, second, third grade. You're exposed to the New York Times. You know, they kept us abreast. That was just a part of the curriculum to keep you abreast as to what was happening in the world. And when you're involved like that, you start to get involved in, well, what's happening not only in the world, but what's happening in my community? And what other learning can I get about sharpening my skills? When I was in elementary school, I was with the audiovisual unit. I was on the newspaper squad. I got involved in everything that would give me knowledge as to what was going on in the world, you know. And I think I was able to refine it as I went to junior high school, and refined it even more when I went to high school, and refined it even more because I was in the right place at the right time at Queens College. Because if you remember the kids that got killed, Schwerner, Gutman, and oh boy, I forgot and Cheney, who got killed during the civil rights era. Gutman went to Queens College while I was there. Felipe Luciano went to Queens College. Oh God. I lost the name. That's, oh boy. Well, anyway, I went with with people who became very high profile later on in life. And we were able to break bread, and we were able to talk to each other, and we were able to learn and grow. I was involved with a group of students who were some of the first minority folk on the campus of Queens College. And I tell you, once again, Queens College was maybe the diamond of the Cooney system, where we had some professors who were larger than life. And it really helped with the learning and the skill set that you needed to not only make it in what your degree was in, but to make it in life. And I was fortunate to be on that train.
So my next question for you is, are there any programs or internships that you experienced or that you know of that you would recommend to help develop these skills and qualities?
There are programs that I know CUNY and many other now of the Ivy League schools and all offer internships and special programs that students can get into. I'm going to speak of one, the SEEK program. I'm not sure if you were familiar with that, but it was a part of CUNY, SEEK College Discovery. And again, it was to help minorities get into college. And when I went to Queens College, the SEEK program was basically Black, Latino. I was invited to go back years later to be the keynote speaker at the graduation of the Queens College SEEK students. And I had prepared my speech for days because I wanted them to know, I was so proud of them for going and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And when I went to give my speech, 90% of the graduates were Asian. And not only was I surprised, but it made me feel so great to see all minorities of people taking advantage of getting a great education. And we have to open doors. We have to pull people along because, sometimes people and employers don't care what your degree might be in. It's as long as you have one. But we have to open the doors so that people can go and learn and be a part of. Like they say, if you're not going to be a part of the solution, you're going to be a part of the problem. And we have to, again, to go back to what I framed earlier, we have to aspire to inspire before we expire. We have to inspire other people to learn, to grow, to mature, because there are folks all over who are willing to give back and help out. But you have to be willing to say, I need the help. I want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about that. Join NAACP. Join the Korean American Association. Join, you have to be a part of different programs and organizations and your block associations. You have to be a part of this stuff, and you have to have an open mind. That is the most important thing because, playing basketball, that some of the people that you'll be playing against are great players. But I had a coach who used to say to us, they have to put on their uniform the way you put it on your uniform. They have to put on their socks and the sneakers the same way you put on your socks and sneakers. So they're no better than you. Go do what you have to do. And that's what I try to tell people. Nobody's any better than you are. You have to strive to be the best you can be. And once you're at your best, try to look back and pull somebody up with you, because that's going to make you an even better human being.
Yeah, thank you so much. These are really excellent resources. Now I'll be handing the mic to Chloe, who will ask a little bit more about your overall workplace journey.
Yes.
All right, so previously in the interview, you did talk a lot about your education, but I would also like to ask for you to give more context on how you got started on your career.
Again, my mother, who was a politician who lived with the congressman, Bobby Garcia. You know, and looking back, they were the ones who truly guided me into the world of politics. You know, helping my mom on her campaign, Jesus, I couldn't have been any more than 16, 17, I guess. Being mentored by Bobby Garcia at that same age. And him putting me in situations, for example, one summer I worked for OEO, Office of Economic Opportunity, and had the opportunity to go throughout New York State monitoring programs and setting up programs of social service. So at an early age, they were kind of guiding me towards the arena of politics. And I think by joining state government through the New York State Division for Youth, and then being able to be a union rep, because unions are highly political, those were like my feeding grounds to learn and grow and want to be a part of the political arena, to the degree that in 2008, I ran for public office because that's how much it was ingrained in me. Politics was in me at that point, you know. So, you know, I think I was groomed for it by my mother, by Bobby Garcia, and other folk that I kind of grew up with and was reared with, who were already going in that direction. Because I really wanted to be a professional athlete. That's what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to see if I could be the next great basketball player in the world. But when I tore my quadricep muscle and my right leg and couldn't play for a while, thank God for the degree, and thank God for the political foundation I had that gave me the opportunity to go into another whole arena. And that arena was politics.
All right, so what other obstacles did you face when getting started with or during your career?
There wasn't many obstacles per se. It was really politics, whose side you were on. You know, I found it best for me to be friendly with everyone because you didn't know who you might need at any given time. So I was rather neutral. I got along with everyone. So the obstacles weren't that great. Again, I think my biggest asset was being able to remain neutral, to read the tea leaves, and still be friendly. I used to tell people who worked on campaigns with me for other people, and always be friendly with the other first line workers, because politics is a funny game. You know, you work on A, you're in a campaign with A who's running against B, but these guys, might be friends, the electeds that running for election in A and B. And here we're not liking their campaign staff or we're not liking their candidate. But I have seen people lose an election and refer you to the person who won the election because they liked how you worked and they saw that you were okay, that you got along with everyone. So I think remaining neutral minimized obstacles that I had, but also doing homework on who you worked for and who the other person might be. So you'd be knowledgeable enough to know how to navigate the waters on both sides.
Okay, thank you. So what was the single best thing, but also the single worst thing about your career?
The best thing was being able to be in an environment to meet people who I never thought I may meet or get to know. The biggest pain, as usual, is losing. When I was the deputy public advocate with Mark Green and went to be his political director for his mayoral campaign, we thought that we were going to be the next mayoral group in City Hall because we were running against a political novice. And we got beat by the political novice. And that was painful, painful, painful. But it was a heck of a learning experience for us all because we were taking things for granted. And it was a painful loss. Thank goodness many of us were able to land on our feet. But to think that you could have possibly been a deputy mayor or a special advisor to a mayor sitting in City Hall, to have that snatched away from you, that was painful. That was painful. But like they say, no pain, no gain. So it was because of that pain that I was able to fall back into the next public advocate hired me. And while I was there, the Manhattan Borough president liked me and wanted me to work there. So again, I kind of landed on my feet and was able to go on. But the pain of losing sometimes can be very hurtful.
Thank you for sharing about that experience.
Sure.
So where do you see your industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, to be honest with you, I have to look at where we're going to be next year, because what happens in 2024 may very well shape whether we still live in a democracy or hell. And it's going to impact from the highest office in America right down to the gutter if we're not careful as to who we put in that presidential seat. I think we're in a very odd position right now. The pandemic really changed a lot of the politics of the land. Economically, I don't know when we're going to level off once again. That has changed the politics of the land. This war in Ukraine has changed the politics of the land. So it may be a little difficult to look too far down the road until we can see how I think next year shapes up. Because I think we have people in the legislative body who are more concerned about destroying America than building America. So right now, we have to really concern ourselves with what's in front of us right now and how will 2024 fall out. And then we can look down the road to know where we're going to be. It's a little bit too difficult to predict what it's going to be like 4, 5, 6 years down the road. Because we might have somebody that might blow up the world. So it's we have to look at the present, and we have to keep faith and get people more aware of the times that we're living in and the time that we might not live in if the politics go wrong in 2024. It's a sad commentary, but America may not be the same democracy that we know now down the road. It's scary.
All right. Thank you for sharing more about your past experiences as well as some challenges that you have overcome. So now I'll pass it off to Chris, who will ask some more questions about mentorship.
Yes.
So I know you've already talked about Robert Garcia and your relationship with him and how he helped mentor you, but could you was there anyone else, or if not?
Yeah, there's been a lot of people who have mentored me. I think the lady most responsible for my career in the last 10 years or more has been a lady, Ann Stroll, who JD knows well, who took me under her wing when she was running Chuck Schumer's campaign against the motto. She has been a heck of a mentor. I mean, just unbelievable. And really helped me grow even more politically, with running campaigns for judges, where I that was like something that I never even knew about. Didn't even know that judges had to be elected. Ann Stroll, a wonderful, wonderful friend and mentor. And I've had plenty of electeds who I was really close with, like the Boylan family, who the daughter Tracy has been a great mentor. Clarence Norman, Assemblyman Clarence Norman, great mentor. Eugene Oliver, the administrative law judge in the Bronx, great mentor. Jose Serrano, a great mentor and friend. These people became like my family, so and I watched them mature and grow, and they would always pull me along, so I those people have been very special to me in my life, so it's been a couple of people that, if we want to use that term, mentor: Bill Modest, Ray Jones, Hugh Evans, the NBA ref, who passed away, but who was one of my first basketball coaches, who kept me and many of the other guys on the straight and narrow, made us hit the books. You couldn't play for him unless you brought your report card in and he saw that you were doing well in school. You know, Priscillis Jones, Preston Bennett, these guys, Nate Tiny Archibald, one of the 50 greatest NBA players. These are guys who really helped me and folk come along as we grew up. You know, so I've had a lot of people that have really become like family, you know, who I could say were also in the terms of mentorship, and those were the guys, those were the people.
My next question was supposed to be how did you develop your network? But I guess unless you want to elaborate more, you've talked a lot about it. So,
you know, again, some of the network was created with being close to other electeds, but also I was very involved in a union where I was on the executive board, which helped me network with other unions, you know. And it was, again, the ability to meet people that you know, you know, you sit in a room with the president of the United States and you say, my God, you know, how did I deserve that? You know, and you sit with senators, you know. I met a lot of people through Andrew Cuomo, you know, whose dad, you know, Mario, you know, that was a godsend, you know. Larry Seabrook, friend who we grew up since we were young, who became assemblyman, senator, council member, the only Black who ever did that in New York State. And it was all of those, working with the Division for Youth, local services. I had to work really with electeds because we funded their community projects. So you get to know these folk, and it's just a big fraternity, you know. So that's, you know, the AG, Letitia James, was a part of our growing up, you know, in Albany, you know. So it's been a good ride. It's been a good ride.
other than people that you personally knew, were there people, certain people who you modeled your career after?
I took a little piece of each one of the folk that were close to me. And I think that's what made me whole, you know. I each one of them, I could see a different trait in that I would take and incorporate in what I did. How I wrote, how I spoke, how I carried myself, you know. I took a piece from all of those people, you know. And I think that was one of my biggest assets. And my greatest asset was I know what I don't know. And I never had a problem in going to seek the answer from someone. And that helped me a great deal.
Thank you for your answers again. And I'll hand it off to Aaron for some final reflections.
Yes.
Yes, so we are reaching the final reflection questions. So my first one for you is, did you ever have any doubts about your choice of career?
Yes. Again, I wanted to be a professional athlete. but, and I don't want to invoke religion per se, but that wasn't what God had for me. It was working with people that he had for me. And once I understood that and grasped that and say, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing in life, that is what made me happy. And that is what I could really put my teeth into and really make a career out of it. Once I understood that was what I was meant to do, because I was confused. I was really confused. And when I came back from Europe, Switzerland, with the injured leg, again, I started working for Division for Youth. I worked upstate in Ansville, New York. And I had the opportunity it gave me the opportunity to heal my leg. But at the same time, that was when I was counseling youth at risk. And the more I healed, the more I knew they were more important, because they were a part of my healing. Because I was helping people get better. And at the same time, they were helping me get better. And that's what I appreciate out of life more than anything else. That's when I learned what I really was supposed to do. And that was to help people. And that was the beginning of the climb. That was the beginning of the climb, to step by step by step by step, and I thank God for that. I really do. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a pretty common experience to have doubts or maybe even be regretful. So it's very encouraging to hear your story and one example of someone who got out of the struggle and found what made them happy.
I'm going to find a way to get a paper that I wrote way back in, I think, 72 or 73. And it was called From Oreo to Chocolate Snap. When I went to all white schools, they were not used to having Black people in their schools. So to them, I was very odd. When I would go back home, my neighborhood, I was called an Oreo, because the Black folk there couldn't understand what was going on. I'm learning and getting a good education in this all white institution now. So the white folks saw me as odd and as a Black person. And when I would go home, the Black people saw me as now I'm a white boy, So I wrote that story From Oreo, because that's what they call Black people who hung with white people. I wrote that From Oreo to Chocolate Snap, to where I could laugh at both environments, because I learned from both and was able to share my experiences with both, to understand that, something, we walk alike, we talk alike, we bleed alike. Ain't nobody any better than anybody else. And that paper, I'm going to get to you guys, because it will explain a little of how, people had so many stereotypes about each other's cultures, and we have more similarities than we have differences. I was the only Black kid in my Boy Scout troop, and a white family invited me to dinner. Now, in my environment, you're taught that that white people eat steaks and caviar and the best foods in the world. And when we had beans and franks at this white person's house, and I came home and I said, "Mom, Dad, they eat just like we do." And my parents said, "Well, what did you expect? We're all alike. What were you looking?" I didn't know that I had fallen into that stereotype trap, thinking differently, like a lot of that people thought differently on both sides, until you recognize, listen, it's about your character. It's about your integrity. You know, we are all the same. And that was the best learning that I could have gotten, was being bused to school to break down some of those barriers in both communities that I had to deal with. And in retrospect, not only was that the best thing that happened to me, but that was truly the beginning of politics for me, because I had to play politics in both environments in order to make it at a very early age. In my elementary school, we had a swimming pool and about 3 or 4 gyms. In my community, nothing like that was ever erected there. But it was because we didn't ask for it. We didn't demand it. And again, I'm telling you, we had our newspaper squad, we were reading the Times in the 2nd and 3rd grade. You know, I mean, it was just a different environment. It was a different environment, but I was able to come back home and share that with my family and friends and say, you guys need to try this out. You guys need to learn, because there isn't any difference. And you'll get a first-class education at the same time. At the same time. When I reached high school, the 12th grade, I was in all honor classes. And it was because of the people I associated with, because their direction was going to college. It wasn't about hanging out, running around, being crazy. Their focus, and these were 75 to 80% white kids and about 17% Black kids, and then some Latino kids. But the focus was education. And my being on that set, I walked with my class in June, but my studies had finished back in December. And I mean, it was just, and again, that's why, again, I was able to understand at an early age, it's not the color of your skin, man. It's your character. In the community that I grew up in, I hate to digress, but in the community that I grew up in, many of the store owners were white. These guys, one guy, white guy, owned a like a variety store. So proud of me at what I was doing. I would go in there, the guy would give me underwear, sneakers, socks. He was just so happy to see me making it. We had 3 brothers. They really reminded me of the 3 Stooges, but they ran a grocery store called the Met Grocery Store. Anything I ever wanted to eat, they provide. They showed these were good human beings. Good human beings. And I'm telling you, it gave me the ability to say to some folk where we live, these are good human beings, man. Don't judge them by their color. Judge them by their heart. And I mean, it was a great growing up. It really was. It really was, truly was.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. We're almost at the end of the questions, but I have a few more. So this next one is, what continues to motivate you?
It's my mentality of wanting to give back and wanting to see others do well. And I when I came up here, I was teaching at a school. I won't say the school, but it was a school for juveniles and kids at risk. And one of the obstacles I was faced there was I would go dressed every day, suit and tie, shoes. And some of the faculty didn't approve of it because they dressed down all the time. But my motivation was to show these kids not only act like a professional, but look like one. And it was such a beautiful experience of being able to talk to these kids about grooming and personal hygiene and things of that nature, where they wasn't getting it at the school and they wasn't getting it at home. And it was a great experience for me. But I tell you, my DNA is to help folk. That's just what I believe God had for me in life to do. And I try to do it to the best of my ability. Giving back. They gave it to me. My parents gave it to me. My community gave it to me. I love to give it back.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
We owe it. We owe it. We owe it. Someone brought me along. I owe it to bring somebody else along. I owe that. And I try to live that way. I try to live that way. And let me just, again, I got to give you this piece. When I met JD, it was one of the best experiences in my life because, again, I know somewhat about Asian communities, but I didn't know anything about the Korean community. And he made me a part of it. He even got me on the board of, I think it was the Korean American Association. And it opened up another learning experience for me. It broadened my scope, instead of just lumping everybody together. I started understanding better. And it's, you're never too old to learn. Never. And again, he pulled me along. It's that kind of stuff that makes me who I am. And it's just unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
Okay, so our final question of tonight is, what is the one best piece of advice that you have to give to the next generation?
That's an easy question. Be able to admit to yourself that your biggest asset can be that you know what you don't know. And do not be afraid and have too much pride to ask somebody who does know, because that helps you grow. That helps you learn. That helps you be a better person, because then you understand that there's someone that can help you. Just like you want to be of help to somebody, you need help also. We need each other. None of us know it all. And if you are humble enough to understand that, it's going to make you a great person.
Okay, thank you so much for all of the wisdom and skills and journeying that you shared about your life and your career today. And now I'm just going to pass it off to May, who will conclude and wrap up for today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for asking such amazing questions. And we cannot thank you enough, Mr. Lewis, for just giving your insight and experience. And you are such an amazing storyteller. And I was sitting behind the camera here, super inspired. And I think a lot of your perspectives really influenced me just within this hour. So I think we appreciate that so, so much. And I think it's an understatement. One thing I noticed, if everybody could share your perspective and your compassion and kindness and selflessness, I think we could really make a lot of progress with some of the issues that we see today. So I think that was incredible hearing that, and just your experiences and your background. And I think it was just, I'm speechless and really grateful that you are here to speak to us today. I think the youth can greatly benefit from this. And I think your passion as an educator and a community leader really shows. And I think the youth and community, we're all students, or we were all students at one point. I think we can all say other students would be extremely grateful as well. So we appreciate your help so much and wish you the best, and also we're excited for other students to watch this Mentor Talks and be inspired and sort of follow your work and what your advice that you gave. So thank you so much.
Well, I pray that one of these days we can break bread together and be able to actually sit down and meet each other and share stories, and then just, again, give it back, reach back and pull somebody else up.
Definitely. That would be such a pleasure. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night, and we appreciate
Thank
it
you
once
so much.
again.
Thank you. God bless you guys. I
Thank
really
you.
take care now.
Thank you so
Bye. Thank you
much.
so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you guys.